Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Act 3. We are so glad that you joined us today and hope the last few weeks for you have been absolutely spectacular and the coming weeks are going to be even better. In the virtual Zoom booth with me today is Jen Cody from Nanaimo Food Share, and she has tons to share with us about how we can be better. I want to say nutritionalized, but I don't think that's even a word. Jen, welcome to the program. Thanks for tuning in.
You bet, Kathy. Great to be here.
So tell us a little bit about what Nanaimo Food Share is.
Nanaimo Food Share is a charitable nonprofit. We've been in the community for over 20 years, and we have numerous programs that are connected to supporting the community in being able to connect with foods that are healthy, to connect with some of the skills that can help support them in exploring new food options and learning new food skills. And we also are partnering with agencies in the community to help support the whole community in having more access to healthy food.
Well, I know one thing's for sure. I've lived in Nanaimo for darn near 10 years, and one of the things that Nanaimo Food Share has been famous for is your marvelous seed sale that usually comes up in the spring. I know with COVID-19, that's kind of put a bit of a hamper on things. How did that work for you? Were you able to manage some kind of a seed distribution?
So we skated under the wire on that one. So our CD Sunday this year, I think it was like March 1st or March 2nd. I think it was March the 1st. And so we were able to hold the event um, as because we hadn't actually had the COVID shutdown at that point. So we marched ahead and had a fabulous CD Sunday, really good attendance, and a great opportunity for the whole community to come together and get prepped for the upcoming growing season.
Well, I love Seedy Sunday. I missed it this year, but it's always been one of my favorite events of the year because, growing our own food has become, well, now I think it's becoming more and more necessary with so much going on in the environment and the way food is processed. Having the opportunity to grow your own vegetables is really something that I think more people in the community are become more and more interested in. Have you noticed a real change in the dynamics of nutrition and food over the last few years?
Yes, I have. Like I would say that what I've noticed in the last number of years has been that the grocery stores have they've changed actually what they're offering. And I've noticed that there's been renovations in some of the grocery stores, and the renovations have meant that the fresh produce and whole food sections of the stores have been reduced in size, usually by about a third. And I'd say that the number of highly processed foods that are available in grocery stores now has increased considerably. So I guess over the last maybe 10 years or so, probably more like 5, that the number of highly processed foods available in grocery stores has tripled. So we've gone from about 10,000 products in grocery stores to 30,000 in the last 5 to 10 years.
Oh my goodness, I'm totally gobsmacked. It's true. I mean, I think I've seen that too, and not really recognizing that that's what's happening. But you're quite right. There's so much more processed food, and we know that the more the food is processed, the less true nutritional value exists, right?
That's right. And then usually if you think about it, then the actual cost of those foods goes up because then you're paying somebody else to do your cooking for you. So, and then that's really been like a considerable trend with grocery stores. Their deli sections have increased dramatically over the last 10 years. And that means that people are purchasing ready-made foods and convenience foods much more than what they used to. And all of those foods are based on profitability, and how they add profit to it is by adding salt, sugar, and fat to all of those foods. And that just means that the nutrient value of those foods for ourselves when we start to rely on those foods more means that we're then it has an impact on our healthy eating because we're not getting the same nutrients from our foods that we used to, because we have all these other calories and empty calories in our foods.
I'm glad you brought up calories because I think that a lot of people believe that if you, I mean, there is a standby that says, you eat less, move more when it comes to losing weight. But a lot of the time people, they go on these diets that actually, that do have a considerable reduction in calorie, but they also very often do more damage to the body because our bodies are not, with all the chemicals that are in some of the foods available, we're not processing the good value of the food as well as we used to from a holistic perspective.
Mm. Yeah, I would say just that, like, if you look at the idea around nutrient density of foods, and so per tablespoon, what does that look like in terms of the nutrient value of the foods that you're eating? And
Mhm.
I would say that if you add the fat and the sugar and the salt to those foods, then per quantity, you're going to have less nutrient value because you've added those other components to the food. So I think that I don't know, like I know that those additives are adding zero nutrients to the food, and I think that that has more impact than whether or not they're actually interfering with our ability to absorb the nutrients. Although I do acknowledge that that's a possibility. But I haven't seen any data on it.
And there's a lot of data to be had for so many things when it comes to food. And, really, I know that there's a number of organizations working with community to try to find the right data because data is changing all the time as well, isn't it?
Mhm.
They're finding new studies. They're learning more and more about the importance of nutrition and how it comes from processed foods and GMOs and all of the stuff that is completely foreign to me. Um,
Mhm.
you know, I find that when I go into the grocery store, what I'm seeing, you mentioned about the deli section, and I'm seeing things that are theoretically supposed to be healthy, zucchini, beets, squash, where they've turned them into spaghetti, so you can do a quick, fast, stir fry with them. I understand that as soon as you start cutting the food, the nutrition value changes, but I don't know if that's true or not. But more what I'm thinking is that that same beet, a single beet that normally would cost just a few cents, when it's been, cut up in this special way, it's like $5 for the package. And so I have a hard time wrapping my head around the convenience of that. I get it because I can be a bit lazy when it comes to, cooking from scratch. But we go to a point where, the cost outweighs the vegetables. I have a hard time with that.
Yeah, well, I think that everybody has like has different strategies around how they are choosing the foods that are going to work for them. And so, what I'm hearing from you, Kathy, is that like one of the things that you're thinking about is if food has been prepared or made more convenient for you, then that you're seeing that there's a difference in the cost, and sometimes that's a bit outside of what you can afford, and I think that there's um, different impacts in terms of what that might mean. I know that in the stores, like sometimes if they've just chopped it up, the vegetable for you and haven't added anything else to the vegetable, then for a lot of people, that really assists them in being able to use whole foods in their diet and support them in eating healthy, even though they might have arthritis or have some issues that prevent them from really being able to spend a lot of time cutting and or cutting their foods.
Hmm.
But then being able to open a package of like a cabbage salad that has carrots and cabbage and what have you in it, and then add that to a bowl and add their own stir fry that or add their own dressing to it for a cabbage salad, then if that's the difference between somebody having a whole fresh food in their diet and not, then I would say that it's a wonderful strategy if you have the income that would allow you to purchase something that where you're paying somebody to actually do your cutting on your behalf.
Yes, and I
Uh,
think I think that that's very true. And certainly for many people, and including myself, I buy a lot of prepackaged foods, certainly cabbage salad and many of the convenient vegetables that have been, pre-cut, so that it is a lot easier, particularly for older adults. It's a terrific strategy as well. But when we
Hmm.
talk about the cost, I guess the only part about it that disturbs me is that there are a number of older adults in our community, for example, that while they have the physical limitations of arthritis or mobility, that those costs can be a bit exorbitant.
Oh yeah, you bet. Yeah, and so that's, I think that all of us are working from a budget of what we know is affordable for us, and then and that's just and sometimes for seniors in our community, then that, or older adults in our community, that can be um, a challenge in terms of matching the budget with the foods that are really going to support them in eating healthy. I'd say that first, depending on where they're at, then some of the strategies that I know that some of the older adults have shared with me in the past have been that they might get together as they might share the the load of some of the food processing. In the before COVID, then folks were getting together and maybe cooking together, and then for some people that felt more comfortable with the chopping and the dicing, then they could take on that role. Whereas people who might find that that's a challenge, then they might take on other roles that could help share the load of some of the cooking. And then, of course, that social component is really important too. And I think that as we're moving into phase 3 of COVID, then people will start to become a bit more understand like some of the safety protocols that they need to follow, and also what and mask wearing and things like that they can do in order to be safe and still come together and share some of the cooking together. Uh, that's coming up, I think, a little bit later in the summer, but we also know that that might change a little bit
In
come
the
the
fall
fall.
again. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
The
having
other
said that,
strategy,
but
yeah, the other strategy I just wanted to mention, Kathy, is that for some folks, then like frozen fruits and vegetables can be a real help,
mhm,
because often those fruits and vegetables are cut up into smaller pieces. And then for some seniors in particular, like, where they can't eat a lot of a food at any one time, because, their how much they eat is a little bit is limited. Uh, just because their stomachs are a little bit less in
mhm,
terms of how much they
absolutely.
want to eat at a meal. And so for them, like frozen fruits and vegetables can be real help, because it means that you can portion out how much you'd like to cook at any one time. And then the rest of that fresh fruit and vegetable isn't going to go to waste, because you can just still keep it in the freezer, and it's still ready for you, in a couple of days or a week from now. And so
Absolutely.
that's and then usually the cost of a lot of the basic fruits and vegetables that are frozen is usually quite economical, relative to what the fresh fruit and vegetables cost. So for a lot of people, that's a real budget saver.
Absolutely, and you're quite right. I think that waste is a big concern for many people. Is that a lot of older adults, they're just not using the volume that they're purchasing, and so if it isn't used up quickly or right away, it does tend to go to waste. And so a frozen food opportunity makes a lot of sense for many. And you're quite right as well about, the appetite changes as we age as well, and the
Mhm.
ability to prepare food can change. But I live by myself, and as a single person, I find that, I will cook a large meal and then divide it up into some of the more convenient uh, dollar store Tupperware style containers, and I can, make up something that's quite wonderful, pop it in the freezer, and at my leisure, take what it is that I like, and have variety, because I make a variety of different things through the week, early on. So when you can do that, it makes a lot of sense, but not everybody has the ability to do that.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, it's
Yeah.
but Nanaimo Food Share also has a lot of strategies in the way of education to inform the community. I don't know, of course, right now during COVID, what you're able to do, but I know for years you had a variety of different programs that would, you know, teach people how they could, or workshops, webinars, things like that, where you could teach people how to make some really simple alternative meals. Are you still doing those, or how has that happened in the last while?
Yep. So we are still doing those, and we've moved online now. And
Oh,
so we've developed like some interactive online cooking, including social meals online through Zoom. And so um, folks can sign up online, and there are cooking classes. And so, and the way that they go is we've got a facilitator who's available for that cooking class, and then we have we send out ahead of time like what the recipes are going to be and what the food list looks like and the types of foods that people would want to have on hand for the recipe, and also the type of kitchen equipment that's going to be helpful for the recipe to have on hand. And then everybody goes through the process of cooking that meal together online.
wow.
And then at the end of the meal, then people sit down and share the meal. So there's a social meal after, and people can talk about what that looks like and how they're going to be be sharing the meal.
What a wonderful idea, and a perfect time to remind our listeners to go and grab a piece of paper and a pen, because you are going to want to write down the information of Nanaimo Food Share and Jen Cody's contact information. So, and especially to perhaps participate in some of the cooking classes that are on the Zoom line. And so, if you don't mind, grab yourself a piece of paper and a pen while we continue the conversation, and Jen and I will give you the contact information shortly. You are listening, if you've just tuned in, you are listening to Act 3 on CHLY 101.7. I'm Kathy Holmes, your host, and with me on the Zoom booth today is Jen Cody from Nanaimo Food Share. Jen, you were also, you know, there's a number of things that your organization has been involved in, including 5 acre, what was it called again? 5 Acre Wood. I always think about, you know, Winnie the Pooh when I think of the 5 acres. Tell us a little bit more about that.
You bet. So it's the 5 Acre Farm, and we are at the 5 Acre Farm now, and are in the process of planting at the farm. And we've expanded our urban farms project, and we have been partnering with John Klein at the Klein Agri Health Center. And so we have about 2.5 acres that are in production at the Klein Farm. And there, what we have been doing is engaging the community in volunteering. So we're there on Saturdays between 10 and 2, and people are welcome to join us. The process is to give Food Share a call, and they can call 250-753-9393 to register with us to volunteer at the farm. And we are having many programs at the urban farm as well. So we have 4 employability skills programs that are running at the farm at the moment. And we are growing food for the Good Food Box.
Fantastic. Tell us about the Good Food Box.
So we've expanded the Good Food Box. The Good Food Box is a weekly box program now, and people can register online for the Good Food Box. We are offering the Good Food Box to community members at a $10 cost or at no cost if the $10 is a barrier for individuals. We now have a pickup option, so people can pick up the box on Wednesdays at Bevan Park if they have pre-ordered a box. And we also are offering a delivery option for community members who are in need and might have a mobility issue, could be self-isolating, or lack access to transportation, or might have a health issue that's preventing them from being able to pick up a box. And so for people who have a reason why they need to have that additional support of delivery, then we're offering that to people in the community as well.
That's
And
fantastic.
so, yeah, so people can have a box at no cost or at $10, and with a health reason, they can have a box delivered to them. And then we have community partners who are also um, uh, managing, if them and a group of their friends are just like, oh, we all want to order boxes, then we also offer a group delivery option. And the group delivery is for 10 boxes or more. So if people in the community wanted to organize themselves and their friends and be a depot for the Good Food Box, then they can call Food Share and we can make that arrangement as well.
What kind of things would you find in the Good Food Box?
So it's the basics, and so they would find potatoes, onions, and they would find apples, oranges, and bananas, and then a few other items, often celery, often lettuce, often they would find oranges, those types of things. So kind of all the basic fruits and vegetables that most people are really familiar with and use frequently in their cooking or in the snacking that they might do during a week.
And some of those contributions come from 5 Acre Farm?
Yep, absolutely. Yep. So we're over the last couple of weeks, we've been providing lettuces as a part of the box, and we are now starting to provide kale as a part of the box as well. And then we've got numerous other crops of fruits and vegetables that are growing in the field right now, and we'll continue to be harvesting those and putting them into the Good Food Box.
That's amazing. It sounds so convenient and so easy to be able to participate in that. You did mention the telephone number before. Would you mind mentioning it again?
Sure. Yep. So people can phone 250-753-9393, and between the hours of 10 and 2. And then we also, if people are free to go online, and then there's an online access to the Good Food Box. So people can just register for a box, and there's online payment if you choose to pay $10 for the box, or if you elect to have a box at no cost, then you don't have to worry about that.
And where would they find that online? Is that like www.nanaimo-foodshare?
That's correct. Yeah, you bet. And it's right on the front page, so super easy to get to.
Is it
On the site.
.ca, .net, what is your, I'll get you to read.
It's www.nanaimo-foodshare.ca.
Perfect. So when it comes to nutrition, there's a lot of mixed messages out there. And I think, the educational component for me is probably the most exciting, in that there's so many new studies that are available. But, when we're really trying to take care of our bodies, specifically now when there's so much concern about our immunity and taking good care of ourselves, do you have any tips, Jen, that you could recommend to our community on how we can stay healthy and avoid some of the, I don't know, I don't want to, it's more than COVID. It's more than a cold. It's more than the flu, but our autoimmune system can be challenged at times. So how can we stay healthy? What would you recommend?
So it's the classic advice that you would have heard from your grandma and grandpa years ago. And it's the, make sure to get outside and exercise and stimulate your appetite and stimulate your immune system and get a little bit of sun, because that's great for getting some vitamin D for your body as well. And the other piece is just choose foods that you know are going to be nourishing for you. And most of the time, those foods from a health perspective are going to be the foods that are higher in nutrition. And most of those foods are foods that haven't been prepared previously. And so, whole foods. So fruits and vegetables, half of your plate full of fruits and vegetables, having a little bit of carbohydrate, maybe a quarter of your plate being carbohydrate, and then the other quarter of your plate being protein. And the things that really support like positive health are any of the proteins, but I'd say an emphasis on plant proteins is really healthy, because not only do they offer you the opportunity to have that really good um, protein in your diet and the B vitamins that are so important for seniors, but also offers a little bit of fiber. And you know, one of the things that happens when people become older adults, then their gastric system, their stomach and their bowels slow down a little bit in their movement. And then for some older adults, what that means is having more fiber in their diet is even more important, because it just makes um, bowel movements and things like that just like so much better.
When you talk about plant protein, are you talking about beans, or what kinds of vegetables and fruits have plant protein?
Well, most foods have a little bit of protein in them,
Mhm.
but the foods that are higher in protein are definitely the beans and the legumes. So chickpeas and kidney beans and navy beans, all of those foods are excellent that way. For some people that might not be as familiar, then tofu and is a good source of protein. And then you know, some foods that are more concentrated in calories, but also concentrated in nutrition are foods like cheese and cottage cheese in particular. Some of those foods are a little bit higher in protein too.
And they say as well that there's a fair amount of fat in some vegetables, things like avocados. But yet avocado is like a superfood. Is that true?
Totally true. Yeah, you bet. So avocados, they are like quite high in fat, and but so are foods like peanut butter, also quite high in fat. But their peanut butter is a good source of protein, and it is a good source of B vitamins and nutrition. And avocado is really high in omega-3 fatty acids and omega-6 fatty acids, and so has a lot of the really healthy fats in it, and has a high nutrient content. The strategy when you're choosing foods like that is to know that you're choosing a food that's really high in nutrition, but also high in calories. And so the trick there is knowing that a little goes a long way, and that you don't want to base a meal on something like an avocado or a peanut butter, but that adding those as flavor and as a spread and as a smaller portion as a part of a balanced, healthy diet is something that's really positive. So it's not that fats are bad for you, it's just how much you have fat in your diet and what types of fats you're choosing can really make a difference in terms of your overall health.
And I agree. I think that the when I think about what avocados can do for people and noting how high they are in calories, I guess one of the concerns that I have is that many older adults, they're eating less calories. They may, tea and toast has been very popular amongst older adults for a long, long time. And as you said, Jen, turning it into a spread and having that nutritional value, or having tea and toast and cottage cheese, or having tea and toast and eggs or something, to give us a little bit more nutritional value than just the basics of the toast.
That's right. And then the trick, I think, and one of the shifts that I think has been really valuable coming out with the Canada Food Guide is that really visual representation of what a balanced diet really looks like. And in our culture, we've placed a lot of emphasis on carbohydrates. And so a pasta meal has often been like a full plate of pasta and a little bit of sauce. And the shift for people now is a lot of sauce and a little bit of pasta. And
Mhm.
then that helps to rebalance out our diet so that we really are having more fruits and vegetables in our diet, and we're having less of the carbohydrates. It's not that they need to disappear from the plate. We're just taking a look at how you can shift that. And so the same thing for the toast crowd is toast is that major carbohydrate. And so is there a way that you can add a fruit or a vegetable to that, to your plate, that you can enjoy and that you can have a little bit of toast with, but maybe there's a fruit salad that's connected to that, or it could be a healthy snack, might be a little bit of cottage cheese and fruit. It might be, it could be like a soup or a puree. vegetables that you might have cooked together. Like, so pestos are really popular right now, or sometimes the like different varieties of hummus is really popular right now. So people can start having more of the fruits and vegetables in their diet and rebalancing their plates to represent that a little bit more. So stews and sauces are really good at that because you can have a vegetable base that allows you to have like a really great spaghetti sauce that is mostly tomato as the base, and then you're there in terms of rebalancing what the plate looks like. Because the fact of the matter is that no matter what your age, most Canadians don't eat enough fruits and vegetables in their diet for what we know to be a healthy diet, and that so uh, if you'd be a part of the 75% of people in our communities, which could really benefit by having more fruits and vegetables in their diet.
Absolutely. I keep thinking about the 1970s, or maybe it was the 80s commercial, when it was the person smacking their head saying, "Oh, I could have had a V8 because of the fruits and vegetable
Mm.
content," and that reminder. But I've also heard that, certainly as it comes to inflammation and as we get older, arthritis becomes an issue for a lot of people. I'm hearing rumor that, tomatoes are not necessarily the best for that. Um, I get confused when it comes to food because one year you can't drink milk, another year you shouldn't have tomatoes, another year it's not a good plan to eat this or eat that or drink this or drink that. It changes constantly, and so it gets confusing. But from the purpose for the inflammation side of things, I'm concerned about older adults that have arthritis. Are there foods or nutrients that can help support someone who might be experiencing difficulties with their hands or joints?
Yep, absolutely. And I think that what you're saying is absolutely true. And I think that our understanding of inflammation and what the immune response is in terms of allergy is we're learning so much more about that and how that's connected to inflammation and to arthritis. And there's lots of folks that talk about different foods to take out of your diet if you're experiencing arthritis or inflammation in the joints or some joint pain. And in general, um, it's not going to really uh, be cured by going on a special diet. Or there isn't a lot of information that really supports avoiding tomatoes or going vegetarian or vegan or removing dairy or removing gluten from your diet. Those haven't really been proved to be particularly helpful. It doesn't mean that they're not healthful diets, but there isn't really a connection in terms of the research that shows that any of those are approaches that really have an impact in terms of arthritis or inflammation. The basics are really the things that are going to make a big difference. So maintaining a healthy body weight will go a long way to preventing having a lot of joint pain, just because the amount of pressure and stress on the joints is less when you have a healthy body weight and aren't carrying too much weight. And so sometimes going dairy free can help to reduce some of the symptoms of arthritis. And so for some people, they really do have that experience, but there isn't really a lot of evidence that supports that there's really a significant link. But it's one of those things that has consequences if you do remove the dairy from your diet entirely, just because often osteoporosis is a significant concern for adults as they're aging. And so if you're removing dairy from your diet, then the question that comes up is how are you replacing the calcium in your diet and the vitamin D part in your diet to make sure that you're still maintaining your bone health, even though you might have taken away what we know is a good source of calcium and vitamin D in our diets. And so um, Really, it comes down to healthy eating, like back to half your plate full of fruits and vegetables, a quarter of your plate being carbohydrate, and a quarter of your plate being protein, and really sticking more with the whole foods and concentrating on foods that are going to be nutrient dense and have more nutrition in them. Foods that have more fiber are going to be really helpful for people in general. So the basic healthy eating diet is the same for arthritis as it is for just health in general.
When I was going to school in home ec class, I remember Mrs. Stubbs, our home ec teacher, used to say that if you go into the grocery store, stay on the outside edges all the way around, because the outside edges are a little bit of carbohydrate without being your breads and cereals. And then you go into your dairy, which is a little bit of cheese, a little bit of yogurt, a little bit of, right? And then you move down into the meat aisle, a little bit of chicken, a little bit of fish. And then you move down into your vegetable aisle and your fruit aisle. And so if you stay on the outside, thank you, Mrs. Stubbs, if you stay on the outside of the grocery, because most of what's on the inside of the grocery aisle is very processed. Would you would you agree with that?
10 years ago, I would have said yes.
Oh, good.
But today, I think that the grocery stores have gotten hip to that strategy. Mm-hmm. And what I find when I enter a grocery store is I have to run the gauntlet of the high-end cheese and the dairy, and the deli section.
Yes.
In order for me to, and then if I head the other way into the store, then I have to run the gauntlet of the bakery section. But the bakery section that you have to go through is all pastries and highly processed, low nutrient types of breads. And so what I'm finding is you still have to be strategic. And I think that the key is in going into a store and doing your shopping, go there prepared and have know what it is that you're looking for and what the list is that's for the recipes that you're planning to cook over the next week, and stick to your list and stick to whole foods. And so if you're buying foods that is in a package, just make sure that the foods that you're purchasing are as close to the whole foods as you can be. Or if you're going down the aisles, like into the frozen food section, that the foods that you're picking are close to being whole foods, and avoiding the foods that have been highly processed would be the recommendation that I would make today.
And also reading labels has become something of real importance, because, and I'm happy to see that when I'm in the market now, a lot of people are stopped in the aisles and they're reading the side of the package. And I think that it's important that we know, what the fat content, what the carbohydrate content, the fiber content, all of that is, and what the nutrients are. I've been surprised many, many times thinking that something is very, very healthy, but noting that it's very high in sugar, and the many different kinds of sugar, and the first 5 ingredients of some of the food that's been processed. Saturated fats, non-saturated fats. Really, I think you have to be very discerning now. Really pay attention to what's on the labels.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. Yeah, you bet. And it comes back again to, like, is it a whole food? Is it a basic food that you're looking for? And so the more that you can be bringing home foods that haven't been pre-prepared, or that, where there hasn't been a lot of additives put into the food that you're purchasing, then those are really going to be the foods that are going to support you much better in terms of health.
If you just tuned in, you are listening to Act 3 on CHLY 101.7. I am Kathy Holmes, your host, and with me in the Zoom booth today is Jen Cody. She is the Executive Director of Nanaimo Food Share. Jen, I'm curious as well about, what calorie content should look like as a method to kind of help people. I think we lose track of how many calories that we're eating as we go through food blindly. And so I'm wondering, if let's say you're between 50 and 60, or 60 and 70 years old, average height woman, average height man, do you have an idea of what calorie content should look like, or is that a bunch of hubbaloo?
Well, like, focusing on calories has got the pros and cons associated with it. I think really then it's around, identifying like what's going to be a healthful diet and a healthful lifestyle.
Hmm.
And, and then, so there isn't really like a one size fits all sort of recommendation connected to that. Because if you are more active in your day, then you do actually need to have more calories in your day.
Hmm.
And then also it depends on where you are in terms of aging. That will also determine like how many calories you really need. Because once you sort of hit 50, then the amount of calories that you need in your day does start to decrease over time. Each decade, your need for calories goes down. And so
Is it
what
because
you used to
activity goes
eat when
down?
you were, pardon
Is it
me?
because activity goes down, or is it just because our body naturally stops, utilizing the calories that we're intaking?
Yeah, our metabolism starts to decrease as we age, and other sort of needs in our body also decrease as we age. And so, for example, um, so if you're between the ages of 51 to 70 and you're a woman, then you only need 1,650 calories per day in general. And that's if you're not very active. If you are a little bit active, then you can increase your daily intake by another 200 calories. So it's around 1,850 calories a day. And if you're quite active, then it's 2,100 calories per day. Um, and then that goes down by a little bit if you're over the age of 70. So it just depends on where you are in terms of your
Mm,
age will influence that. And then your activity level also influences. And then of course, women require less calories than men do.
yes. Yeah.
And so it changes. And so for older adults, depending on what their health status is and how active they can be, then always being more active is going to be a real benefit for anyone,
Hmm.
no matter what your age is, but for older adults in particular. And then really like the strategy that I use is around what does that mean in terms of my waistline, and how does that look in terms of like what's a healthy body weight for me, and then just setting some really good goals connected to what your body weight is. Sometimes for older adults, the issue isn't a red flag is if you end up losing a fair bit of weight over a short period of time and you didn't really mean to. And
Hmm.
then that can really be a red flag in terms of like a health issue that's come up. And
Absolutely.
so I would recommend anybody who has that experience to make sure that they contact their doctor and have that checked out. Because if you didn't really mean to lose the weight and it's come off quite quickly, then something has changed in terms of your health and it's worthwhile following up on. Because
Absolutely.
because often that does mean that there could be a challenge in terms of not having enough nutrition, and then that can have like some significant outcomes in terms of like just where you are in terms of your mental health or in terms of your balance and in terms of how you're walking in the community, and um, and how your thinking processes are. So you might increase a little bit of your confusion, or your energy might be really low. Those types of things might all have some impacts in terms of quality of life. So, and that's where nutrition can really be helpful, and being strategic around that, because your nutrition requirements go up as you age at the same time that your need for calories goes down as you age. So that the most older adults don't realize how strategic you need to be in your food choices to make sure that you get all of the nutrition that's really going to support your immune system and your whole body and being healthy, and your mind in being healthy. So choosing nourishing foods is really important. It's more important as you age than at any other time in your life other than when you're a baby.
Yeah, and I think that that's an important distinction, is that as we get older, that the need for nutrition becomes even more important to maintain a healthy weight and a healthy life. Um,
Mhm.
but I hear as well a lot of people are supported by shakes and meal replacements and things like Boost. From an older adult perspective, what's your take on those kinds of calories?
Well, I think that, the it's it's having Boost, like, for some older adults where they're really being challenged by getting enough calories and enough nutrition, then that it can be very helpful.
Hmm.
But as a shortcut to nutrition, um, then I wouldn't recommend it necessarily. So I wouldn't. Um, I think that, like, if you're that older adult who has lost a lot of weight and is really having a challenge with maintaining nutrition, then I think that some of those some of those nutrient drinks and meal replacement drinks can be helpful.
Hmm.
The piece that is a challenge with those is that they're not offering the other components of the food that are also healthful. So they don't have the fiber that's really going to help promote positive bowel health, promote positive bowel movements, and it's not going to promote the positive bacteria that also are really critical in supporting health in your immune system and your mental health. So
Hmm.
that they can assist you in maintaining nutrition, but they're not the only piece of what's going to be important in terms of maintaining nutrition. And really, I would hope that they would only be a part of a diet for a short term in order to bridge whatever the challenges for the individual in being able to get back into a routine and into access to the foods that are really going to support their health. So
Hmm.
I wouldn't want to see that become a regular part of anyone's lifestyle, that there'd be a goal for every individual in the community to be able to get their nutrition from from the foods that they're eating rather than from a nutrition supplement.
Understood. There's been a lot of discussion lately about sauerkraut, kefir, kombucha as a way of lining the flora and the fauna of the belly for digestion purposes. Is it just a fad to have some of those additives?
Well, I think that there's lots of nutrition in fermented foods and foods that have positive, like, probiotic bacteria connected to them,
Hmm.
and I think that they they can be helpful. Really, like, there's two ways that you can add, like, more or support your bowels in supporting, like, a healthy positive bacteria in your body, and one of those ways is to have foods that we know have some of those bacteria as a part of them. And so, what, as you mentioned, like sauerkraut and kefir and yogurts and those types of foods are all like, happy, healthy parts of a diet, and often something like sauerkraut is a food that's extremely high in nutrition, and is a really good food to be eating, and has some of the fiber and the other parts of the food that are really good for having to have healthy bowels.
Hmm.
And then the other way to feed your body and promote, like, sort of healthy bowels is to eat foods that are higher in fiber. So choosing proteins that have fiber, and then those would be the plant-based proteins like legumes and chickpeas and kidney beans and all of the lentils. Those foods as a source of fiber also promote healthy bowels. And the other foods are the foods like fruits and vegetables that have more fiber. And so those are really good foods to be having in your diet as well. And when you have choices around carbohydrates, then choosing carbohydrates that have more whole grains in them,
Hmm.
and choosing breads that are whole wheat, or choosing quinoa, or choosing pastas that are more whole grain, then those are positive foods to be having too.
So you have to really tell me, what is quinoa? I've eaten it, but I don't know. Is it a grain? Is it a rice? Is it a pasta? What is quinoa?
Well, quinoa, I use it as a grain, so I use it in the same way that I would use rice. Quinoa, technically speaking, is a seed, and it's a high protein, but has the texture and has the carbohydrates that a lot of people appreciate in their meals. And so, if you're wanting to bump up your nutrition, then and you have some of the income that would support making quinoa as a choice, because quinoa is more expensive than something like rice,
Hmm.
then I would choose quinoa more often, just because it has protein and it's got fiber and it's got that texture that that a rice or a carbohydrate has, that I enjoy, and it gives you a little bit more than what white rice or even brown rice would really give you in terms of nutrition.
Can you grow it? Is
Yeah,
that
you
a
can
seed?
you can grow quinoa here in on the coast. The challenge is harvesting it in the fall, because often we get the rains before you can really pull it in and
Uh,
dry it and process it. Yeah, so you can do it, but it's a little bit tricky.
right. It's some of the funnest things are a little tricky. That's the reality, if truth be
You
told.
bet.
Is it true as well that there are some vegetables that it takes more calories? I'm thinking about in specific celery. That
Mhm.
apparently it takes more calories to chew and digest celery than the celery has in it. Is there any truth to that, or is that a rumor?
You know, uh, I'd have to double check it, but my impression is that yeah, I mean, I don't think that eating celery is going to help you to burn calories.
Right.
But the nice thing about celery is that, it's got some good water content. It's got lovely flavor. It has, I think it adds a lot to, things like soups and stews and to spaghetti sauces or into salads. And it has, it's got good water and it has good fiber content. So there's a lot of reasons why I
Butter.
would eat celery. I don't think I would eat celery specifically to burn calories though.
Yeah, well, you never know. I mean, I personally love celery with either. I know this is terrible. I'm saying it even out loud, but as a little girl, I loved Cheese Whiz on my celery, and
Hmm.
now I prefer peanut butter. But either way, it's a perfect stuffing, right, in a piece of celery.
Absolutely.
Jen, it's been such a privilege to have you on the show today. We only have a few minutes left. And I know that there are so many more things I want to talk to you about. One of them in particular has to do with the opening, or if they are open, of the open markets. You know what I'm talking about. Usually on Wednesday evenings in Bevan Park, there's the open
Oh yeah, there's
farmers markets.
the
That's
farmers market. Yeah.
are you
So
still part of that, or is that still running? What's happening with the farmers markets now with COVID?
Yep. So the farmers market is open, and it's still running on Tuesdays. It's there from 2 to 6 p.m. on Wednesday afternoons and evening, and we still do have the BC Farmers Market Nutrition Coupon Program is running from the Island Roots Farmers Market
Hmm.
at Bevan, and right now the program is full, uh, but um, but people still are welcome and able to access the farmers market on the Wednesday nights there. And there are other farmers markets up and down the island, including like the Cedar Farmers Market is open on Sundays, and then Duncan and Qualicum are open on Saturday, and then there's the downtown farmers market also is open on Saturday. So there's quite a few options for people if they want to buy local. And this is definitely the year for people to be able to support local farmers and local producers.
Absolutely, absolutely. So just to clarify, I heard you say Tuesday, I heard you say Wednesday. So the one that's at Bevan, is that on Wednesday or on Tuesday?
It's on Wednesday.
On Wednesday. Okay, perfect. So, certainly it's a great idea to get involved with the farmers markets if you can, and purchase locally and help support some of our community members. Jen, as we close the show, I guess I always ask our guests, you know, really what the takeaway could look like for someone when it comes to, you know, in your case, when it comes to nutrition or Nanaimo Food Share as a whole. What life lesson? What would you like to imbibe on people to, you know, consider when they're choosing nutrition for themselves? What would you suggest?
I would just hold in your heart and in your mind the what's going to be nourishing for you. And so there's lots of ways and lots of choices that people can make around food. And food plays so many roles in our lives. It's something that we share socially. It's something that's going to nourish our bodies physically. Food supports our mental and our emotional health as well. So really, it is really about what's going to be nourishing food for people in the community. There isn't a right or a wrong in terms of food, but I think that when people are making choices connected to food, really thinking about what's going to be healthy for them and starting to move in directions that are going to just continue to reinforce and support them in being able to make healthy food choices. And I think all of us have that experience about what is it that in the long term is going to really help us to feel good, and foods can really support that. And learning more and thinking more about what is a nourishing food is really the best place for folks to go if they want to find information that's really good and useful and simple and not too complicated, and is information that we know is really based on best evidence. Then I'd recommend that people go to unlock.ca, and that is a great place to find lots of resources and good basic information that people can know is like really legitimate and well based in what we know is best practice. So it's the Dietitians of Canada support the website, and it's unlock.ca is the website.
That's incredible. Unlock.ca. And Jen, once again, thank you so much for being on the program today. I'm so glad that you were able to share your wisdom with our community. Jen, could you also give us your website and telephone number? How can people reach you if they have further questions or concerns?
Well, first of all, I should correct what I just said, which is it's actually unlockfood.ca. So I just make sure that people hear that. It's unlockfood.ca. And if they have any questions and if they want to reach me, then they can reach me at Nanaimo Food Share. And the phone number is 250-753-9393.
I'll get you to repeat that one more time, please.
It's 250-753-9393.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today, Jen. It's such a privilege to have had you in our Zoom conversation. You know, if you have any questions, Jen is the person you need to contact and talk to. Definitely go to their website at Nanaimo Food Share. Definitely check out the food. I don't know why I'm losing the name of those, but you know what I mean. Wednesday nights and during the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, the open markets, and really take good care of your health by paying attention to your nutrition. Thanks again, Jen.
Yes, you bet. Thanks a lot, Kathy. It's always a pleasure.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next week on Act 3. Thanks for tuning in.